CPT, NASM. Gotta take a deep breath for this. Okay. Hey guys, it's Terra here. We have another TerraLellagram of information, and that is the NASM CPT exam. Now, we have a few things that we have to cover here. It's how to pass the CPT exam your first try. Not the second, not the third, the first try. Because we want to save time. We want to get right into it. We want to start our business. So we're going to talk about the ways and tips, motivation, my notes on how to pass the exam. So I did prioritize my studies. For example, when I wanted to study, I would set out like an hour or so each day, but I was not consistent. So a lot of times I would skip, maybe I would study the first 2 days. I might skip the rest of the like 3 days and then go back and make it up on the weekend. As somebody who was in school and college, I have my master's, so I was able to utilize some of my exam techniques and skills and methods and habits that I used in my graduate studies, and I used it for the actual CPT exam as well. One of the struggles, the main struggles that I really had for the exam was just confidence, staying consistent online. I did use the NASM online textbook because I liked how I was able to do Control F and find different terms, or if there was something I needed to go back to from my written notes, I would just type it in, visit it on the actual online version of the book, and from there I was good. A lot of the terms were very difficult. I don't have a background in anatomy or anything like that. My degree is not in that field, okay? But this was a little bit different because it was more like medical almost. Like, are we becoming a doctor? No, but anyway. But I was like, they can't possibly want me to know each of these terms. So just have that in your mind. Like, they don't want you to know all these terms, especially osteoblasts. Don't even worry about them. But I do feel like the terms you should know are the planes, like the axial, frontal, transverse planes. Those are very important. I did not use the physical textbook because I don't want to carry that big textbook around. A lot of time I had to spend doing this. It took me 6 months to actually finally feel like I'm ready to take the exam. So my thing was, I took the exam a month early because I was at a point where like, okay, this has been 6 months. We've studied for 6 months. We're not gonna retain anymore at this point. We've read all the chapters, okay? It's been a month later and we still keep reading the same thing. So at this point, you need to speed up the process. I wrote down everything I could. I need to just go ahead and push myself. And we'll get to that later about motivation and how to get out of your head and just stay confident and just go in there and do it. But before we do that, I will show you guys how I took my notes and what notes I did take. So here you'll see on my screen, I have each page for each chapter. There were 23 chapters. I did them. I probably could cover maybe 2 or 3 chapters. Well, not even 2 or 3. I would say the top was 2 chapters a week because these chapters were separated by sections and there was a lot going on. So first of all, we have chapter 1. Chapter 1 was more like an introduction of what you'll be learning, how to be professional on the job, and how to be professional in your field as a certified personal trainer. It even covered a little bit of the OPT model, but that doesn't get talked into more depth until chapter 21. And 1 and 13 we're covering it a little bit, but chapter 1 was more of an introduction on what you're going to be knowing. Okay, so chapter 2 was more about sales, how to actually start your business. In chapter 3, they covered, oh, and by the way, this is important. I feel like this was maybe discussed as an important topic. But chapter 3 was the barriers of a client's progression through fitness. For example, were they ambivalent? Chapter 4 was more about the client as well. For example, the stages of change model, like pre-contemplation stage, contemplation stage. These are very important to know because I will say they're going to be on there, okay? Chapter 5, I'd say, is not that discussed throughout the exam. That chapter 5 was pretty important for understanding the nervous system, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. And I will say this section also gave me a really great mnemonic device when determining your cervical and vertebral columns, like the breakfast at 7 a.m., lunch at 12 p.m. How many of the vertebrate bones or connections. When it comes to your ankles, you want to know dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, abduction, adduction. Those are difficult for me because it was very confusing, like abduction, okay. And then we want to know about protraction. Those are important. Protraction of the foot and the retraction. And I will show you some pictures that I have saved that were very important. We're also going to want to know about the agonists and synergists, but those aren't discussed until the other chapter. Chapter 8, we talk about energy, for example, ADP to ATP, the oxidative system, glycolic system, fat, carbs, protein, all the things that make up energy. Then we move on to chapter 9. We have macronutrients. For example, we have carbs, proteins, and fats. Those were very important. Chapter 12 was covering posture and performance. And I thought this chapter was very important to me because I related to pes planus and lower cross syndrome, which is an excessive lumbar lordosis. I also related to the pes planus distortion or knock knees because I have that as well. So I just used this for my own knowledge and I thought it was important for the actual exam too. So yes, this chapter was about posture and what type of compensations the body might make. Chapter 1 and 13 covered a little bit of the planes of motion like transverse and frontal. And it also talked about some of the levels of the OPT model. Chapter 16 was core training, the different flexions that occur in your foot, for example, triple flexion and triple extension, for breaking down the levels of the OPT model and how you progress your client into the next level of that model. Chapter 22 was strength machines. For example, this helped me a little bit outside of the exam because I didn't know what a Viper was. And it's basically one of the tools where you like hold like this and then you go like, yeah, you lunge like this. You're basically holding the bar and you go like, you do like a lunge, okay? Chapter 23 was about health and some of the limitations that your client may experience. For example, if they have diabetes, if they are overweight. And then you might even notice this section, muscle anatomy. Now this part was not a section of the textbook. I just simply put this in here because I like to work with visuals. I'm a visual learner. So right here, you'll see all these pictures. These are all pictures that I utilized because I needed to know what these terms meant, like supine and prone, and then flexion, abduction. I needed to see pictures on where these muscles were. Where are your deltoids? Where is your muscle fidus? Where is your triceps brachii? Where is the infraspinatus? I also used this picture to know what flexion was and extension. I wanted to know the levers and the movement. I needed to know the first class lever, the second class lever. A really good picture I like to use was this one here about the planes because this helped me really visualize what each of those planes were. I do want to give a shout out to Emelylifts because this is where I was first introduced to the overhead squat assessment template that she made or that she shared on how to, how to remember basically what overactive muscles and underactive muscles are being activated for these different overhead squat assessments. These were very helpful, but I did have to, revise a little bit of it to meet the more updated textbook because some of it changed and I modified it. So that's another thing you gotta pay attention to. Like if you're using a study guide or a template that somebody else made, you have to make sure it's updated with your textbook, not the past one. Now. Okay. I have all these markings here. Do not be alarmed by all these markings. This is for me. Yours just probably may not look like this, but I have to write a lot because I need to retain information. I have 3 different versions. The one that she put up here, the one she edited for herself, and then the one I made for the more updated portion of the overhead squat assessment. And a lot of times you'll see me writing things over again because once I write, the more I write the same thing over, the more it'll get stuck in my head. So I thought that was very helpful. Then I had a page for all my questions, things I need to revisit. If there was a question that I got wrong on the practice exam, I would note that here and then highlight it in red so that I know I either got it wrong or right. And then I revisit it to make sure it's engraved in my mind. I put in some of the examples of stuff. And by that I mean examples of different exercises, things that I won't really remember if I don't write it down. For terms, I put all the terms that I'll ever find or need that I covered in the whole entire textbook, and I put that in this section. A lot of these terms I never even visited after the second time because it wasn't relevant to what I thought would be on the exam, and it was true. Like a lot of these terms you're not gonna ever see. They're just there because maybe they just don't want to be liable for the information that they don't give you. So some of this was just some terms that you did not need to know. Like you didn't need to know what the neuron does. You don't need to know what the organelles do in terms of physical, in terms of your daily certified personal training, right? You're not gonna need to know what the efferent pathway is. But some of the terms that you will need to know are proprioception, the different planes of motion. And I've seen a lot of Reddit posts of people like saying they didn't need to read the textbook at all and then they passed their exam the first try. How? So I don't work that way. Like I have to review, I have to take notes, and I have to take time to do things and to make sure it's ingrained in my head. That's why we passed the exam the first time, because we're taking time, we're taking this seriously because we really want it, right? So if you're ever feeling a certain way, like you start feeling doubtful or just worried about how well you're gonna do on the exam, I would say just remember you have studied. And if you're like me, this is how I thought of it, right? I've studied for 6 months, almost every day. I've written everything that I could. I covered everything that I needed to cover. At this point, we need to just go ahead and do the exam. We need to not worry about how well we're gonna do. We know we did it. There's no way that we can not do it right the first time. So one thing I would say and suggest is that don't get in your head. Do not get in your head. If you put in the work and you studied all of this that you needed to, that's all you can do. So my thing is, I even took the exam, the practice exam, 6 different times. And for the most part, I passed each of them. Not with a 100, not even an 80. Some of them were just passing, right? We gotta go ahead and do it. We're not gonna this is as much information that we can retain. So that was my mindset. It was very, 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 very stressful, because if you're someone like me and have test anxiety and you get doubtful of everything, or even if you just have generalized anxiety, not even during tests, but just in life itself, also me, I would say you need to not think about it. You need to just sit there in your chair like this. This was me when I was taking the exam. I had my water, I was drinking. I was like, okay, you're gonna pass the exam. Like, there's no other way we can get around this. You are. So this is what I did in my chair when I was at my computer right before the exam, maybe like 10 or 15 minutes before and leading up to it. I sat back, closed my eyes, and I was like, and that whole time as I was exhaling, I was loosening up my muscles. I was loosening up all the tension, all the negative energy that I felt, all the doubt that I had in myself. I was letting it sink into the chair. I was relaxing my muscles. And I kept doing this as many times as I needed until I could feel like my heart stopped racing. And that's just me. So I suggest that. I would also suggest repeating some affirmations to yourself, saying you've done the work, you're good, you're gonna be great, you're gonna do fine. You wanna pass the exam the first time, this is what you have. Now, when it comes to being in the actual proctoring online, that was where most of the stress came from, because the automated person, they may have been real. I think they're a real person, but I couldn't tell. They want you to have a clear glass of water. I had a clear glass of tea at first, and then they said, you need to remove your tea. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I went ahead and went to grab like a clear glass, and I just put some clear water in there, and there you can drink it. You should not have anything on your desk. They will want you to do like a whole rotation around your whole area, and they want to make sure that you have nothing on your desk. Even under your desk, on top of your desk, around your desk, they don't want any of that around. I couldn't even have my sunglasses. I had to put them on the other side. I couldn't even have them on the table. So that's fine, that's cool, because I didn't really need them. But you should not have any paper. When they do allow you to take your license and your certification card out, they will want you to show that and then eventually move it off the table. And as for your certification for your AED and CPR, you will have to have that before the exam, because they're going to want to take a scan of it to make sure that you have that prior to passing the exam. Because think of it, once you take your exam and and you pass it, you're literally a certified personal trainer. So they want to make sure that you have everything you need at that moment that you pass it. Okay, so that's that. Now, as for notes and guides from online, one website that I did use, and I put my email in for it, was the ptpioneer.com. And they email you the link to the NASM CPT study guide. And any of the ones that you do see from past videos, they're probably not updated, but the ones I'm showing you now are updated because they have like more color to them, they're more updated, and they're more crisp looking, I'd say. So yes, this one here, I did not really use this study guide because I really liked the way I took my notes, but this was good if you're on the run and you want to just take out your sheet and just, you know, review it. I mean, that was great as well. I will provide the link to that, to the Emelylifts page, the one that I had mentioned earlier, because she was pretty helpful. And yeah, so again, remind yourself, you've done the work. If you happen to have that type of ability where you can just take an exam without reading the textbook, which is crazy to me, but if you have that ability, awesome, congratulations. But if you're someone like me who has to take months to mentally prepare, academically prepare, do it. You'll be fine, okay? So just affirmations, relax. Do not stay in your head. That is where the main issues come into play. Another mental technique that you might want to use to build confidence in your studying is just fast forward in your head to the moment where you've succeeded, to the moment where you got your certification, to the moment where you passed. This will relieve you in this moment, even if it's temporary. At least you'll feel that feeling as if it was actually there. So once you start imagining that you've actually done it and you've actually made it, passed it, I think that'll help as well. And if you are somebody who's religious or believes in God, just know the Lord got you, okay? It's all about your mindset. It's all about your mindset shift. Do you want to think positively and feel good in the moment and do well? Yes. Do you want to be negative and set yourself back? No. Okay? So yeah, so these are just some techniques that you want to use to shift your mind from pessimistic to optimistic. And just make sure that you take breaks. Take as many breaks as you need to, not during the exam, but like throughout your progress, your 6 months, okay? You get overwhelmed, take your break. So if there are any questions, direct questions that you have, or tips or advice that you would like, or that you're interested to know about in the 2024 version of the NASM CPT exam, or studying for the exam, please let me know in the comments. I do have my certified personal training website where you can visit, see how I put my website together, see how it looks. Happy to share. And yeah, so I hope you really learned something, and I hope you really gain the confidence you need to pass this exam for the first try. And I'll be here if you need me. This was the TerraLellagram of information.